Hello, I'm Marcel Francis, and this is my presentation on nootropics or also what they're called smart pills. And my issue is the use of smart pills for cognitive enhancement dangerous? Why or why not? And I believe it is. For some reason, for the use of smart pills, the concept of nootropics is the basics of it is really to improve the cognitive functioning of the brain, and it uses this through a multitude of compounds are commonly found in everyday products such as coffee or energy drinks, etc. However, they've been seen to have some pros and cons to them, so we're going to go to that here in my next slide here. And first we'll go into some background information, but as I stated, with nootropics, nowadays there are usually vitamins and herbs and amino acids, and they're stimulants for the brain that usually results in an increase in dopamine. But in the beginning here, you can see that nootropics were a drug originally created in the 1960s by Romanian psychologist and chemist Cornel E. Gurigria. He used to treat people with motion sickness, and he accidentally found this treatment of nootropics originally through a multitude of compounds, such as the use of caffeine, rosemary, green teas, amongst other chemical components. And now, here in the 21st century, nootropics are now kind of seen as like a smart pill or a get smart quick drug, as how they're being marketed by pharmaceutical companies and how they've expanded to being bought through multiple retailers. Here to get started on the issue description or the overview of the issue of nootropics is, as I stated earlier, the purpose of them is for nootropics is for the brain to better work cognitively. But the purpose for my presentation is to figure out why they might not be beneficial to you, but also show some of the positive effects of nootropics, and also see how they can be better regulated in the medical field. And as you can see, over the last decades, nootropics they're used every day to keep up with home responsibilities, and work obligations as well. So there can be an overlapping use in using nootropics for work purposes, but also people using them to party as well, such as Adderall, which is another really common nootropic that's used for both studying, but also being used as a party drug as well. So one of the big side effects that we'll talk about is nootropics and the possibility for addiction. And to start off here, and with my side of the argument, we'll go through some cons. And some of the cons here with the use of nootropics, as you can see on the screen, is high blood pressure, fast heart rates, insomnia, because nootropics usually are a stimulant, and that makes it hard for you to fall asleep because it means it's giving you energy. Possible trouble with vision, and of course the chance of addiction when using them for the wrong purposes, such as partying, when you don't need the drug because you have a deficit in attention, which, I mean, of course, nootropics and Adderall are commonly used medications for ADHD and ADD. Also, Alzheimer's disease and narcolepsy as well is what nootropics are used for, as one of the positive side effects, which I'll mention in the next slide. And let me see. Oh, sorry, that font's a little bit small, but you can see that some of the pros here that are covered is one that I mentioned earlier is narcolepsy, dementia, and Alzheimer's have all been shown to improve under certain nootropic medications approved by doctors. And of course, the purpose of nootropics is to better increase brain performance, focus, and productivity. Um, and there are studies that have been shown to do that with certain nootropics. Commonly used nootropics, according to Jennifer Berry, one of my sources of nootropics type safeties and risks using smart drugs. She states that Provigil, Adderall, Ritalin, and Xera, four very commonly used nootropics, have all shown to improve certain medical, I guess you can say, holdbacks. So ADHD is one of the many, I guess you can say, medical dysfunctions that nootropics are used for. Next, in the next slide, we're going to talk about the key stakeholders in the world of nootropics, who's making the drugs. I couldn't find too much information on this particular subject, but the nootropics industry is approximately a $10 billion a year industry, and it's been like that since the year 2007. And we're gonna get into that here. So before we get into that, I want to cover how recently the pharmaceutical industries are increasingly focusing on the research for potential substances in the field of smart drugs. And in clinical trials, could be on the market in a few years. Some smart drugs are being put out to certain retailers, such as CVS and Walgreens, but not properly being regulated. And this is one of the key stakeholders that I meant to mention earlier with Cephalon and Teva Pharmaceuticals, both makers of nootropics, and Teva is an industrial pharmaceutical company based out of Israel, and they recently bought Cephalon for $6 billion. Cephalon is one of the makers of the nootropics modafinil, so under the name Provigil, which I mentioned earlier, is one of four very popular nootropics that are used. And it is marketed as a cure for drowsiness and brain fog, and its purpose for being prescribed is to professionally help people who are sleep deprived. So that includes people with occupations who are long haul truckers or also fighter pilots. And that source comes from Vox, Caitlin Tiffany, the all too understandable urge to buy a better brain. Those are some of the key stakeholders in that department. Some of the solutions and summaries to conclude my presentation are, one, there are healthy alternatives to taking nootropics, and there are some very basic things that if you work into your everyday diet or habits that you can improve, and that's eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, and exercising on a regular basis. And there are both pros and cons with nootropics, and one thing about nootropics is that there's very little data still to come out about nootropics and how they affect people's brains. But for everyone, it's different, and that's why if you're going to use experimentation, you definitely want to consult a professional medical assistant. So that's my presentation on nootropics. Thank you very much.